In this lecture, we're going to learn how to work with list views. A list view is another widget that allows us to create rows in a list, and we can add all sort of data into the list view. It's a very neat and well-used user interface component because it let us put a lot of data, scrollable data, in such a small screen, such as on mobile devices. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to create a stateless widget. Let's call this movie list view as such. Okay, very simple. And before I forget, I'm going to just call our list view. Let me finish that like this. I'm going to call that inside of our main. That way we can actually invoke it. This gives us this dark user interface because we only have a container here. Let's put all inside of a scaffold as such. And I'm going to add an app bar. I'll give a title. Say movies. Give a background color. I should have actually added a text as such. Movies. There we go. And background color. Let's give it blue-gray and give a shade of 900. Save that. Give it a run again. Let's not forget our semicolon. Well, I can see we have an R bar and our background is good there. Okay, if we want, we can actually add a different background to our body. You can come here and say background. Let's go ahead and give it colors, blue-gray again, and shade of 400. See what's going to happen, and there we go. Nothing really out of this world, but we can see things are still working perfectly. All right, so we have a background here, and most importantly, we are going to go and look at our body. In our body, we begin to invoke our list view. And the moment you use type list, there's a lot of options here, obviously, but we want the list view builder. As the name implies, this list view builder gives us all of the components that we'll need to actually build a list view. It's quite easy. Let's just hit enter. And notice here we have to pass an item builder. The item builder here, we actually have to pass a function which will have a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a build context. So let's say build context. And the second one, which is needed, is going to be an int. We can call this index. And of course, this will return as a function. We'll have to return something. Let's go finish that. And you can see right away we have this issue that says this function has to return type of widget. So in our list view builder here, we pass a function, okay, name function here, which will pass the context and the index. The widget here that we need to return is going to be what we're going to be showing as a row in our list view. So I'm going to say return. And I can return anything, right? Because it's just a widget. In this case here, I'm going to just return a card. So there is such a widget called card, which allows us to, which will just give us a very simplistic card. And then we can do all sorts of things with it. Now, this is part of the material design. Very good. So in our card here, I can go ahead and say, well, first of all, I want the color. I'm going to give a white color. And it gives us a child. In this case, I'm going to just pass a list tile. A list tile allows us to actually add, for instance, a title. And it's going to be a text. I'm going to say movie, something like that. And also allows us to give it a subtitle. So as you can see, a list tile is yet another useful and handy widget that gives us even more leverage to organize our user interface. Okay, so notice we have a title and we have a subtitle we can add if we want to do so. But in this case, we don't want to add any of that. So I'm going to finalize here as such. Now, if you save this, you're going to go and you can see now we have almost as if it was an infinite amount of rows that contains this text movie here. Because that's what we said. We say in our list view builder, we pass the context and the index, which we haven't used yet. And we return a card. It's going to be a white card. And inside of that card, we have a list tile, which will have a title that says movie. Now, the reason why it just gives us a bunch of rows is because we haven't given our list view more information about how many items we want to be shown. So if you go back down there, like in our list view builder, before the item builder, notice we can actually pass here, there is parameter we should always pass, which is the item count. Now, this item count as the name may imply, is the count of the items inside of our data source, because the idea here is to create a list view from a data source. Could be a list, could be a list of objects, strings, whatever we want to add. So we need to pass the count. In fact, for now, I can just pass, let's say I want 5, okay? When I do that, save that, you can see now I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. Okay, so this is the controller of our list builder, or list view builder, I should say. Now we want this to be dynamic, right? Because the idea is that we always get the data from some data source, pass that data through our list view, and it's going to go ahead and build all the rows so we can see them. So this is not dynamic, obviously. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we should have our data source. To simplify our lives, I created already a list of movies, which I'm going to just post them here like this. So this is going to be our data source, and we're going to go through here. Once we have our data source, movies, so a list of movies here, so we can use that to populate our card. So easily, I can just come down here and say movies. Because it's a list, there are different functions or methods we can access, right? If you did that, there's add and so many others. And we can also say element like that and pass the index to get something, but we're going to do this way because it's an array. I'm going to just pass index like this. If we save this, you can see now we have a movies showing. But here's the problem. It's only showing 5 movies. However, in our data source here, our movies list, we have more than 5, obviously, as you can see. So what's going on? Well, what's happening here is that because this item count, we just added number 5 earlier, of course, list view builder is going to go off of that. It's going to say, well, whenever I want to construct our card here in our list view, what I'm going to look at is that I have only 5 items. So it doesn't matter how many items we have in our list here. It's just going to go say, okay, we just only 5 and just show 5 items from our list, which is not correct. How do we then get the correct number, meaning dynamically get the number of movies? Well, simply we invoke movies, okay, because that's the data. You can see here's a list, and I'm going to say length. Okay, now dynamically it's going to go ahead and get all of the movies that we have in our list. You can scroll up and down. Now, if I were to add other movies here, obviously, I'm going to just repeat a few here, save, it's going to go ahead and add all of those movies. So I'm going to save. Now, probably have to run again because we've changed our data source. Notice then we're going to have a repetition of Vikings there. So now it's all dynamic. Anytime we increase our data count, it's going to obviously look at our item count, which is going to say movies at length, and it's automatically get the updated length. And there we go. So just like that, we're able to have a data source of movies and then use our list view builder, which we had to pass the item count and the item builder. And in the item builder here, we passed a function. We need to pass the context and obviously the index so that we know exactly which items we are getting from our data source. Okay, there we go. And just like that, we're able to create a very simple yet powerful list view user interface here. So here's what I want you to do. We know at this point that we are returning a card here. So I want you to do a little research. In fact, one of the ways to do this, you can actually click on card and say command, click like that, or Control B on Windows or Linux. It takes us to the actual card.dart. So this is the library class. Okay, that we didn't write this, obviously. You can see here, extends stateless widget. What do you know? And it says here creates a material design and gives us all of these other properties we can pass. So we've used the color. We haven't used elevation, which you can look into and see what you can do with it and so forth. So there are a lot of other things you can actually invoke or add to our card. One of which I want you to look at is elevation and see what it does. Okay, so do that, and I'll see you in the next video.